Welcome back, College Baseball Central fans. We're back. We're back. New season, Scott. We got started up. We got a whole baseball set all weekend long, and this is Beavs on the Diamond. Scott's going to jump in from time to time on here with me, and we're going to discuss college baseball. We're going to discuss the Beavers in specific. Scott, how we doing, man? Opening weekend, we're back.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say is wow. I mean, we survived the off season. That was what 250 days of no
Too many
baseball for
days.
Oregon State. So, I'm sure like you went to the fall scrimmages and went to a few of the winter scrimmages, and go to the Diamond Dinner and that kind of stuff. So you get a little bit of Beaver baseball, but it's sure nice to have them back. And wow, they just impressed all weekend.
They did, and the fans showed up. I think there was almost 4,000 fans there for the Saturday game, which was incredible to see. Just showing out for the Beavers all weekend long, and it really feels like a home away from home in Surprise, and it's really great to go down there. And those opposing teams coming in, they feel like they're at road games. It's a neutral site game. It's supposed to be. Doesn't feel like that for those games down there for those guys.
No, for sure. I talked to a couple of my friends that were down there in the stadium, and they just said Saturday was the biggest crowd they'd seen in 10 years going to those games. And I don't know, it was definitely pretty fun. Big crowd. You can see it on TV, but
yeah. Yeah, it was funny because you see these Beaver fans, they were at other games too. They went to the Indiana game this morning. It's like a whole lot of orange in that crowd for it to be UNLV and Indiana.
yeah.
Two red teams, and you got all the orange in the crowd. But I was excited to see it. So happy, Beaver fans. We're back. I know a lot of you guys hit me up over the weekend, and we're really excited about college baseball being back. For those of you who don't know, I released my top 25 again today for the first week poll. I had the Beavers all the way up to 3. Our poll has them still at 7. Listen, they're or at 8. Beavers are a good team. There should be a top 10 team. As long as they take care of business, they're going to stay there. I think that they're a lot better than a lot of my colleagues have them ranked. Maybe it's West Coast bias or not, but Scott, I know that I have the Beavers ranked in the top 10. How do you feel about them being in the top 10? And do you think that they should maybe be higher, or are you going to wait for later in the season?
I think they need to go out and do what they did this weekend. They need to show some dominant, performances and that kind of thing. I think the people that have them lower than 7 or 8 probably aren't watching them. If you watched them this weekend, we had a lot of really big moments. We talked about this a couple months ago when we talked about the preseason, talking about what the season looked like. We were talking about Dax Whitney and, Ethan Kleinsmith, and we were talking about, getting Arquette and those kind of guys. Like, it was really cool to see this class come in, and it's exciting.
Yeah, and it was all speculation until Friday when we took on Xavier. Game 1 there, beat Xavier 8-3. It was a really weird, cloudy day. There wasn't a lot of good weather there for that first part of that game. Really slow start. Xavier actually scored their first 2 runs without a hit. That was really weird. They got a walked-in run. They had a pass ball score run. It was really an odd game just watching it and kind of just seeing that the Beavers hadn't gotten going. The only hit they had for the first 6 innings was Tice Peterson. And then the offense got rolling. Good start, though, for Nelson Keljo. First Friday night start, 4 innings, 5 walks, 5 strikeouts, 1 hit. Segura comes in. He gets the win eventually. 2.2, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 3 walks, 3 Ks. Morel comes in, 1 inning, and Munt comes in to finish that one out. What were your takes on the pitchers? Let's start on the pitcher side, and then we'll get to the hitter side later on this one. But how did you feel about the pitching? I know a lot of walks, but how did you feel?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing I jumped out is I saw, Billy Van Rapport behind the plate, and then kind of both sides were kind of chirping at him a little bit for not getting the low strikes and that kind of thing. And, our Beaver team generally tends to, if we're going to miss low. And so I'm not too worried about 10 walks or whatever we had. A lot of these kids were nervous first game of the year. They're amped. You could see Keljo was, just amped up. Every time he came off the field, he was super excited. So, it's not about, it's limiting the damage. And I thought they did a great job of that. Yeah, they gave up a few walks. Yeah, they gave up, I think it's kind of our, philosophy is you don't go right after the guys, try to get them to swing on stuff that's borderline or outside the strike zone. And if you're not getting those borderline calls, then that just happens. It's not a big deal. But I thought it was incredible. It was, fun to get to see, I have Arquette out there crushing the ball and, Caraway leading off. That was kind of a surprise. But you and I talked about that earlier in the week, that when, those were the 2 guys that were leading off for the 2 teams for scrimmages. So I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. A lot of people last year would have said Travis Bazzana shouldn't have let off all year. such a great hitter and the best season we've ever seen. And he led off all year. So I'm fine with having Caraway up there. Get him more at bats.
More at bats is not a bad thing, right? I mean, he's taking advantage of those, and we'll talk about the offense. I was surprised by the zone, I think. I don't know. I mean, it's the first day for umpires, too. We got to remember that. It's
Sure.
their first games out there, too. Not the best weather that we've ever seen in Arizona. I thought Keljo got squeezed a little bit. I thought when A.J. Hutchinson came in, his stuff was moving a lot, like almost too much.
Yeah, it was moving too much for sure.
And I felt like he got squeezed a little bit there on the outside, too. Outside and away was his spot, right? If he's going to throw that slider, that sidearm slider, he's got to get it, and they weren't giving it to him at all.
Well, I will say that the umpire was consistent. I mean, it was his first game, but he was consistent, and we didn't make the adjustments. The batters did. The batters laid off those pitches, and we kept throwing them out there. Their team kept throwing them out there. Like it's part of baseball. You just got to roll with it, and you need to make those little adjustments and that kind of thing. But I mean, overall, when you're not putting in when you're putting up zero after zero after zero, how much adjustments do you need to make? So
100%.
But Hutchinson's stuff was so lively, he just couldn't, if he's not getting swing and misses and it's moving, 24 inches or whatever they said it was moving. I mean, that's tough to move it that much and get it to go across that strike zone. So I thought he looked good. He didn't have the command we want to see.
Yeah. And, we've had guys like Bridger Holmes last year who had that kind of where it moves too much almost. And you have to dial it in and figure out where to throw it. I think Hutch is going to be fine. He's an experienced pitcher for the Beavs. I really liked seeing Eric Segura come in and be able to get those 2.2 and being able to throw a little bit there and give them something that, was lacking last year in the bullpen. There was a deep threat guy that could go in long innings. This is the guy that was an honorable mention Pac-12 pitcher for starting pitchers last year, Scott.
Yeah, no, I was really surprised to see him come in and, but we had kind of heard from Rich Dorman that was the plan, that maybe they would throw two closers either on Friday two starters either Friday or Saturday and have one follow the other. And I think the reason why we saw Hutchinson come in and pitch the fifth was because, Keljo came out early and they didn't want to alter the plan for Segura. And I think the plan for Segura was come in the sixth and, you want to build him up and get him ready for that. So I think Hutchinson was the gap there. And it's just unfortunate that's when the other team scored a couple runs. But, I think Keljo just with the missed, all the walks and that kind of stuff kind of got up in his, pitch count pretty good. And I think that early in the season, they were probably going to cap him at 80 pitches no matter what. So
80 to 85 was the number for almost all the guys this weekend, as long as they were feeling healthy. And I think the cold weather also, Scott, being out there, it had to play a little bit with that one. I think if it was a little bit warmer this weekend, they could have extended that a little bit. But Rich was very direct and, hey, we're going to keep our guys under the number. We're going to make sure we're going to give lots of people opportunities. We're going to get out there and throw. We don't want these guys to get hurt so early in the season. So I'm with you.
Well, and it was a great opportunity. I mean, God, we got to see, Segura come in and pitch well. We get to see, Papa Joe come in and, finish out the game. And, I think that's the role he's going to live in. And anytime we're in a close game, he's going to be the guy that's going to get that call. And, we have all weekend long, so many arms, so many everything. But it was good to see Friday kind of kick us off, get us rolling, gave up a couple runs. But the team, talking to people, talking to players, they were like nobody in the dugout believed that they weren't in it, that they weren't just going to come back and win.
Yeah.
And they just have this real, really positive attitude amongst the players right now, as much of a family unit as you see, just people believing in each other and friends and just really tight knit. And I'm just impressed with the team.
Yeah. Caraway got the offense going there late, started going, and then all of a sudden it rolled. And Arquette, Iva hits his first home run, first hit as a Beaver. Craig goes out there, he hits a home run. Weber hits a home run. And then it just felt from that point on, the rest of the weekend, the hits were going to keep coming, which we'll talk about in these other games. But once that back-to-back Craig Weber, it was like, all right, this is the offense we've been looking for all day. The Arquette home run was great. It gave them the lead. It gave them all the momentum. Like, okay, we're there. We're right where we want to be. The back-to-back Craig and Weber was like, this is the Beaver team we've been talking about all offseason.
Let's talk about those two home runs for a minute. I mean, Craig hits his home run with a 49-degree launch angle. I mean, I think they said there was three home runs in Major League Baseball last year that had that launch angle. Like, people don't hit those out. That just doesn't carry that way. And then you follow it up with Wilson Weber, who, showed off his arm throughout the game. He didn't get all the calls, but he made the throws and there's a lot of close plays, but I mean, he has this great game catching, back picking guys at first and doing all that stuff. And then he gets up and hits the ball. Was it 117 miles an hour, 113? I can't remember. But
117 at a 22-degree angle, 469 feet or something.
Yeah, I mean, just wow. I mean, showing off the weight room times really helping. Boy, these guys are crushing the ball. So I mean, that was just a big moment back to back with those guys. And like you said, at that point, you kind of, as a Beaver fan, you're able to breathe a little bit and go, okay, we got this.
Yeah.
It's a first game jitters.
Yeah. And I had the Beavs up on the big screen, but I had 4 games on the little screen, 4 games on the laptop. I was spread out, but I just kept looking back up there and going, what's happening? What's going on here? What's happening? Come on, let's get going. Then it started going. You're like, all right, deep breaths here. We're back in this thing. The shaking off the super regional of last year where we couldn't score with runners. That all got shaken away earlier there. Let's talk about game 2, Scott. Beating UNLV, a team that is going to compete for the Mountain West Conference championship this year. They received votes from other coaches to be the number 1 team in the Mountain West Conference. Beat them 16-0 in 7 innings, and all eyes were on Dax Whitney. His first outing as a Beav, he's a guy that could have been drafted in the top 2 rounds. He said if he didn't go in the first round, he wanted to come to Oregon State. As soon as that 37th pick was gone, I told people, I'm like, I was celebrating at home, and people didn't know why. I'm like, Dax Whitney's coming, and this is huge news. And then he shows up, and he showed up with the 5 innings, 8 Ks, 4 hits, got the win also in his first outing as a Beaver. Tremendous, Scott.
No, I agree. I was, I was stoked when watching the draft, and I think you were one of the many people where I was texting with instant, Dax didn't get drafted, and then, I think he made a tweet or did some kind of announcement that he was ready to roll and that kind of thing. I know I talked to, Gavin about that, and Gavin said that he was, messaging him all night, and he, was like, I'm ready to roll, or let's do this, or whatever he said. And it was pretty stoked that, they were excited. The players were excited. This kid's coming in. The commentators on Saturday couldn't stop gushing about Dax, and they were saying, he turned down multiple $1 million to come here. And I don't know if it was that much, but he definitely turned down a big league contract, and, the rumors I'm hearing is 1.7 million, but, something like that. He turned down a legit offer that he could have went later in the second round, but received, big money. And he came here because he wants to come win a, national championship. And he talked about, the commentator said that they had talked to him, and he talked about, when he was playing little league ball or middle school ball or whatever, that his team was at Dave & Buster's or something like that. And they watched the Beavers win the national championship, and they're celebrating, and, Buffalo Wild Wings, I guess, or one of those places. And they were stoked. And he's like, I want to go there. I want to go do that. I want to be a part of that. And, he comes in and he's just so impressive. I mean, the first batter, he strikes him out with 97 miles an hour, and you're like, holy cow, he's throwing gas. And then the next batter, he throws him and strikes him out with 98. And you're just going, wow. And then, he induces a weak pop up to the foul territory that gets caught. And you're kind of like, okay, he's got a good fastball, but then you see him in the second inning break out a 77 mile an hour, 12-6 curveball that's just falling off the table. And you're like, wow, batters weren't swinging at it because it looks like it was coming in as a high strike. And and he's throwing 4 pitches. And I remember seeing some of the analytics on some of his pitches and how much movement he has, and, the vertical break and the spin rates. And, it was just super impressive. I should have wrote them all down and brought them in here for the show, but just crazy impressive. So yeah, I lived up to all the hype plus some.
Yeah. And this is the thing. You look at it, he's a true freshman. This was his first collegiate action other than fall ball and getting to play his own team. First time he's facing really another team outside of when he pitched against Gonzaga up here in Bend. You just look at it and you go, this guy's not a freshman. This is unbelievable action. And he's throwing 4 pitches for strikes. The big thing for me was that he was able to slow down the curveball and throw it for a strike when he needed to. He could break that thing in there instead of having to rely on the fastball like a lot of young pitchers do. He was able to throw that curveball in any count, and he threw the fastball in any count. It was tremendous to see him just get after hitters. And I know Rich has been preaching to these guys, throw strikes, attack hitters. We'll figure out the rest later, go after them. And the freshman went out there and did that. And then we get James DeCramer and Zach Edwards come out and do the exact same thing. They go after hitters, and they just come right after these guys, and they were not afraid of these UNLV hitters.
Sure. I think DeCramer, you see how he came in and he was amped. After missing a year of injuries, he was amped. And I think that you saw that a little bit with his little bit of lack of control, because I watched him pitch a couple times in the scrimmages leading up to this, and he was just wowing people. I mean, and so I felt like he had a little bit of that, pre-hype. I mean, I talked to someone that was there at the stadium. They said watching him throw in the bullpen, he was lights out, and he came in and kind of had lost a little bit of that control. And, that's a big moment. You're sitting in front of, 4,000 fans down there screaming, and, you finally get in a game. And, I think that the big thing for us is we see these pitchers like Dak Whitney come in, and you're like, and Kramer, and these guys, you're thinking, wow, this is the first action they've got. How do they look so polished? But they've been thrown against our hitters in these scrimmages like nonstop. So, all of a sudden they get in and our hitters aren't having to face the Kramer and Dax and Nelson Keljo and Ethan Kleinsmith. They're facing those other pitchers, and we're crushing them. And our pitchers aren't having to face Iva and Gavin and, Craig and all those people that are, I know that one of the scrimmages, Iva Arquette took Dax Whitney, off the tops of the batter's eye. You're going, holy cow. So these guys have been really, challenging each other and all of that. So it's been, I think that's the big thing for us, is that we're getting them to watch him play. But for the first time, they're not facing the competition they were for the last month.
Yeah, and what a luxury to have guys like James and Zach come in there and be able to throw. Zach Edwards is a guy who many people didn't really have high on the list of maybe getting a ton of innings this year. Tremendous backstory there up in junior college. I think it was Everett, Washington. And he's throwing 97, 98 miles an hour.
Oh
And
my
you're like,
gosh.
what? I mean, actually, he's a true freshman. So he came in as a true freshman. And you're talking about him and DeCramer. You got guys. I mean, that's 3 new guys in Beaver uniforms. James was on the team last year, didn't get a pitch. But 3 guys getting their first opportunity and just coming out and shoving against this UNLV team. Very impressive. On the offensive side, Caraway, 3 for 4 with a double. I mean, he just the leadoff has been a great spot for him so far this year. Tice Peterson goes out there 2 for 3 with a home run. AJ Singer gets his first hit as a Beaver. He had great at bats the first days, just walked 3 times, but he goes 3 for 5 with a double and 4 RBIs. And Wilson Weber, another guy, goes 2 for 2. The offense just, once it got going, like I said, that Craig Weber double back to back in the previous day, it felt like it just rolled record over. They scored every inning, all 6 innings in that UNLV game.
I know you and I were talking about whether or not AJ Singer would stay in there late innings and play defense, and he did. Man, the catches he made and the plays he made defensively is, I think a lot of Beaver fans don't know who AJ Singer is, but here's a kid who hit, 396 last year, the JUCO level. I think he had more walks and strikeouts and stole 27 bases. I mean, he's a guy who can produce, and then he played stellar defense. So I think that, there's a reason why he won that second base job. I mean, Trotsky's amazing, and I love to see him get in there and get a play and do that kind of stuff. But I had a lot of people asking me, why wasn't Trotsky playing? And I think Singer just, looked good in scrimmages and kept going. And we saw him all weekend, coming up with big at-bats. And, his at-bats were competitive, and he walked a bunch. And so, I don't know, it's a fun time to be a Beaver right now.
Yeah, and AJ Singer, he played 5 miles north of Omaha, and he said he came to Oregon State because he wants to play in Omaha. That tells you something. A guy that's there every year, last 2 years getting to watch it as a JUCO player, he really wanted to be at Oregon State and get a chance to get to Omaha.
Yeah, they did an interview with him. He was talking about how, he didn't think that, like Oregon State was going to be an option. He was thinking Arizona schools or something like that. Then all of a sudden, Oregon State started talking to him, and he was just like, oh my gosh, like this is a real thing. And he was pretty excited. So I think he was on the pregame show with Josh Warden, one of the pregames. Maybe might have been Sunday game or something like that. But he was on there, and it was pretty fun to hear him talk about kind of that path of getting here, why he came, being close to Omaha, all that stuff. So
yeah, I love it. And the offense there just got rolling. A lot of guys got opportunities there. But again, AJ Singer, he got his first hit as a Beaver. Tice Peterson, the home run. Those were the big ones. And Caraway just continuing to lead off. Game 3 took on Indiana, who a lot of people have picked to win the Big Ten. It's between them and Oregon and maybe UCLA even. There's some good teams out there in the Big Ten. Indiana was picked to win the Big Ten. They ended up going 0-4 this weekend, which was crazy to see anyway. But they lost 6-0 in this game to the Beavs. And Ethan Kleinschmidt, I couldn't say enough about him. Six innings, 0 hits, 2 walks, 5 Ks. He just was attacking the zone. That ball's hidden. Does a tremendous job throwing strikes. He doesn't throw super hard, 91, 92, but he spots up every pitch.
Like I said, Indiana's a legit team. And you saw Indiana and, UNLV today put up 25 runs between the two of them. Those are teams we shut out, both of them. And you got these pitchers that you're saying, well, yeah, it's Dax Whitney and it's Ethan Kleinsmith, but we watch Keljo show, throw on Friday and we're impressed. And then you get Dax Whitney and you get like 5 innings and you're like, wow, he was unbelievable. And then, Ethan Kleinsmith follows it up with 6 on, Saturday of no hit ball. And you're just like, and I mean, Devin Taylor, is that the Indiana guy's name? I mean,
probably going to win Player of the Year in the Big Ten.
He's one of the few Golden Spike guys, that are like the Golden Spike watch list. And I mean, you and I were talking about it over the weekend that he's got a legit chance to be the Player of the Year in his conference. And, we got him out and we struck him out and we, look good. And I mean, just surprising. I mean, the teams are better than I think people will realize over the next month or two how good these teams we played this weekend are. It's always hard to tell at the beginning of the season and that kind of thing. But unfortunately, like you said, you got 6 screens and you're watching everything. I was able to listen to the commentators and listen to the radio. I was full focused on the Beavers. And so I was, just watching every pitch and watching what the commentators had to say, listening to the radio guys and what they had to say, talking to friends that were there, that were behind the plate going, oh my gosh, you got to see this guy. And I'm like, yeah, no, it was Kleinsmith lived up to it. I remember talking to him at the Diamond Dinner and asked him about his journey and, if he was ready. And like I said, when I was talking to Gavin early in the year, he was the guy that said, man, Ethan's sneaky. Like you just can't pick up the ball, come out of him. Everything moves. And, it's fun to hear players break down these pitchers and give me the insight on Dax Whitney or give me the insight on Ethan. And talking to him, he was just like, I was really impressed with just how level he was and what a, great kid he is. And he's big, like our whole team's big, but man, they're just big, bulky guys. So.
Yeah, and he pitched at LB there for Andy Peterson, and really a guy that people were like, okay, maybe he's going to be the weekday. I was included in this. I didn't know. I talked to a bunch of coaches, a bunch of people. They're like, the velocity is not there. We're going to see how he matured over the offseason and see how, man, he just didn't. He stepped right in and go, I'm going to win a job. I'm going to win a job over a guy like an Eric Segura, who was an honorable mention Pac-12 pitcher last year. I'm going to go in there and win the job. And so we get a new starting pitching, all new rotation over the weekend. Tremendous. Wyatt Queen comes in, also throws 1.2, 1 walk, gives up the 1 hit there, and then Leif Palmer comes in to close it. Leif Palmer and Wyatt Queen are 2 terrific arms. Again, Wyatt Queen's the one from Everett Junior College that I was talking about, and Leif Palmer. You're talking about Leif missed all last season basically due to injury. He pitched a little bit, but really the numbers are inflated. They weren't really where he wanted to be. This is a guy that could have been in the weekend rotation. That's how good he is, and now we're going to use him in setup roles. Wow.
I was kind of really hoping we were going to see him pitch on Monday and that he was going to be a starter and that kind of thing. But, like I said, for our average weekend thing, we need him. He's going to be, you saw him come in and I think he pumped 3 strikes against Devin Taylor and put him down. Like, you're just like, wow, that was not that was 3 pitches, 3 strikes, and you go sit down, it was really impressive. I mean, you can't stop gushing about the number of arms we have, the number of all these guys. I know talking to Rich Dorman, he's saying he thinks he's got 8 guys that are going to go pro, in the draft class 2 years down the line when all these guys, all these freshmen are turning pro. He's just like, he won't stop talking about these guys. So it's super impressive to hear.
Yeah. And I talked to Rich and I said, hey, how is this team? How are we looking? And I talked to him a little bit, and Ben, he's like, this is the best and deepest staff that I've ever seen. And for me personally, I said it's the same, especially after seeing them this weekend. Nobody threw twice. They threw different guys every single day. And it's just crazy to see. We'll get into that game 4. But first, let's talk about the offense here in this game against Indiana.
Let's go back
to Gavin Turley, right? It was Gavin Turley. He goes 2 for 3, hits the home run. I was laughing because I was sitting on the couch. It's 1-0. And I'm like, what would be awesome? Gavin Turley hasn't hit one yet, babe. I think he's going to hit one. Boom, smokes one. And then you and I were talking about it. Like, Gavin was due. He was hitting the ball so hard. He just was getting 0 elevation. Hits that 3-run home run. Ivar Arquette goes 3 for 4 with 2 runs. I mean, really, it just felt like the game never was that close, and it was only a 6-0 game.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, like I said, to go back to the pitching for 1 second, talking about Ethan Kleinsmith, we talked about it in the previous podcast we did. He struck out 120 batters last year. He had a 1 ERA. I think he gave up 38 hits and 16 walks to 120 strikeouts. If those were high school numbers, all the teams, everybody would be losing their minds. But he's playing against LBCC. I mean, like legit junior college kids that are probably better than most high school teams. So it was impressive. And like you said, the hitting, I was texting with one of my friends, Josh, right beforehand. He's going, Gavin's due. And then Gavin hits a home run. And he's just like, it was so awesome. And I mean, Gavin was one of those guys that was super dialed in. I sent you a couple videos from the scrimmages of him, just crushing the ball everywhere. And it seemed like every time he got up, he was crushing the ball. So it's kind of good to see him get a home run, get that off, get that thing going. And, how many RBIs did he have? I mean, geez.
He's got 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, taking care of business, doing all the little things. It's going to be really awesome for him to be able to see a lot of good pitching because he's going to have 2 guys in front of him that are on base a lot, and Caraway and Arquette, as long as the lineup stays the same for him. I'm pumped about it. Another thing I'm really pumped for, Chinook sunflower seeds. Folks, if you guys have not gone out there and bought Chinook seeds yet, I have a case at home that I'm taking over to Scott in 2 weeks or 3 weeks when I come down to Corvallis and watch that home opener. I'm going to take some seeds down there, folks. If you guys see me, come grab some seeds. Chinook sunflower seeds are the best seeds on the planet. Low sodium, great flavor. If you use our code CBC, you get 10% off your entire order. Go out there and buy cases. That's what I do. I get cases at my house here so I can go out there and give them to you folks, and I eat them here. I take them fishing. I take them hunting. I take them out with me to the golf course. They go everywhere with me. They're so good, and I give them out to all sorts of people. Scott, I don't know how much of a seed guy you are, but I do know that you do all those things.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Like, I can't tell you, I went through a lot of sunflower seeds watching the Beaver games this weekend, just sitting there eating sunflower seeds while I was watching Beaver baseball. And I like doing it at the stadium, but I tend to do it at home too. So definitely I can't wait to get that box. That'll be awesome. Like
8 flavors coming to you. I got all 8 flavors coming to you. It's going to be terrific. Let's talk about Game 4. So that was today. We waited today. We wanted to do the podcast after the game today so we can make sure we get in today's game. 18-6. People are asking, why did they play the full game? Why wasn't there a 10-run rule? I believe both coaches agreed to a vote for. They wanted to give some guys some innings. They wanted to give some guys some opportunities, so they wanted to play the full game today. Beavers travel tomorrow and go to play Houston on Wednesday, but they wanted to get the full innings in today. 18-6. Kellen Oaks gets the start. I know that you and I were pondering who's going to get the start, who's going to start. I thought maybe Talavs or Oaks, whoever they were going to go with, one of those 2 guys. They both got in, and really they both took care of business. I mean, Oaks got in a little bit of trouble early. I think that he was missing his spots a little bit. Could have made a play to get him out of that game, out of that inning there where Arquette doesn't quite bobble it a little bit. A second doesn't get the throw off, but really a good outing if you're a Beaver fan.
Oh, man, no doubt about it. You said something about the Houston game really quick. I don't know if Beaver fans know they moved the Houston game to 11 a.m. with the weather concerns and that kind of thing coming up. So talk about that for a split second. That's just because that's where my mind goes when you say Houston. But, incredible watching Kellen Oaks throw today. Like, I was excited to see him. I'd seen him throw a little bit in scrimmages. And, like I said, he really easily could have turned in, clean sheets throughout the entire thing. But he came right back. He gave up a couple runs, and then the next 2 innings were I think there was, one inning was 6 minutes long between the 2 halves, and 2 minutes of that was the time between. And so it was quick innings, and man, he was looking good. And that's what you want to see. Is you don't want to see everybody just clean, sail through everything. You want to see a guy who has to come in and deal with a little bit of adversity, and he did great. I thought he looked really good. And then, like you said, got Talavs coming in, and I mean, there's still a few guys we haven't seen that are on this team that, I'm excited to see. But then, all the way to the last guy when Tanner Douglas came in, I think it's Tanner, maybe it's Hunter. I don't know.
Tanner Douglas, yep, you got it.
Tanner Douglas, he was closer for Portland last year. We got to see him in a few of the Portland games. It was great to see him come in, and, he, again, had to deal with a little bit of adversity. And, it's, you got good players, good teams. You're not playing pushovers, so it was fun to see these guys pitch, and man, we're deep. It's like I said, it's fun to see a couple left-handed starters and a left-handed guy coming in that it's going to be a late inning left-handed guy for us. So
yeah, you're talking, 13, 14 guys deep already by the time we got down to Oaks and Talavs, and they looked like they could have been weekend starters, honestly. Drew comes out, gets the walk, right? And then he goes 5 straight strikeouts, just beating up. He's like, I'm not throwing walks. We're not doing this. I'm going to throw strikes and just challenge these hitters. And it was good.
The commentators kind of,
too.
Yeah. The commentators kind of bit Talavs because they're coming in, they're talking about his numbers last year and his control. They go, he's just not a guy who walks guys. Then he walks the first batter. And you're like, okay, well, we kind of, stepped on that one. And then the next thing you know, he strikes out 5 guys in a row, and they're talking about like, wow, look at this or whatever. So strikes out 5 guys over his performance. And they were like, okay, now it's more like what you expect to see from him. And, just throwing heat. I think he was throwing 94 and, maybe more. I don't know. I just, like I said, it was definitely fun. And then, like you said, you get to see the next Kamats guy come in and, looks good. And they're talking about him and how he was the, player of the year in his, New Mexico or whatever state. And so it's fun to hear, we obviously have that history, and it's fun to see him come in and get a chance. And they said he was the weight room guy, that he's the, biggest guy in the weight room in our team. And you look at our team and that's surprising, but kind of look at our coaches. I mean, look at Mitch and Ryan. They've obviously been spending a little time in there with the team too. Cause today they got to get down to short sleeve shirts, and you're like, wow, these guys have kind of bulked up a little bit. They're obviously having to compete with everybody and do stuff. So it's fun to see everybody's enjoying the new hitting, weight room, pitching facilities. So
absolutely. And we did get to see the freshman Adam Height. He got in for 1 inning, for 1/3 of an inning. He threw one out. I figured he might get in to hit, and he comes in to pitch. So, I mean, he's going to be a two-way player of the future for us. Big, tall, strong kid. I think that with how well AJ Singer has taken off at second base, it might be tough for him to get innings at second. Maybe he's going to see some innings at bullpen. Who knows? Adam Height, though, is going to be a dude in the future. Jacob Craig, Scott, we talked about him. We talked about him so much. Hey, go out there, swing, go get the ball. And the guy has all the ability in the world. He has the ability to be this super All-American guy. He showed it today. 3 for 5, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs. Boy, he bounced back.
Yeah, I mean, that he gets up, hits a grand slam, and the next time he comes up, the exact next inning, he's up with the bases loaded again. And the commentators are like, how did he lay off that pitch? I mean, the commentators were losing their minds that he stayed off 3 pitches that were borderline just off the plate, but there weren't his pitches. He was dialed in. He wanted something right there. He wasn't going to give in and swing at the pitcher's pitch, and he walks on 4 pitches with the bases loaded. I mean, that's an incredible back-to-back, thing. And so at that point you're going, wow, he's dialed. Then, later in the game, he hits another home run, and, just, man, what a game for him. And, he was a guy who struggled earlier in the weekend. So it was really fun to see that after Saturday's kind of tough game when everybody's hitting, all of a sudden, Monday rolls around and it's a brand new game. That's baseball. You're one swing away from a hot streak, and he showed it today, and it was awesome. It was fun to see. And what he's got a world of potential, God, just nobody hits the ball as hard as he does. I mean, he had a couple foul balls that you're just like, wow, look at that thing. Like, I don't know. So it's impressive for sure.
Yeah. 5 hits now and 3 home runs on the weekend. Tremendous. Good to see him get going. This is a guy that he could really help carry this team if he is the power guy. And then you're talking about Caraway and Turley and Arquette in front of him. It's crazy. Caraway goes 3 for 5 again. Just overall a great weekend for him to be back healthy 100%. And I want to mention Easton Talt too, going out there. That guy does a lot of little things right. He's so fast. He plays the game smart. He plays the game really hard. He went 3 for 6 today with the RBI. I really liked what Easton's bringing to the game there, and just filling in that role right now in right field.
Yeah, I love Easton and Cannon Reeder both throughout the scrimmages early in the season. When they got up, if the defense wasn't playing them right, they were bunting and they were using their speed and getting on base. And you saw Talt do that a lot this weekend. I think Cannon probably would have did that more today, except for he kept coming up with the bases loaded. So, but these are 2 really fast guys you haven't seen, since, Boyd and Meckler and Boyd and Melton and, probably Jacoby Ellsbury, So, you just watch these guys, they have speed and they're using it as a weapon, I think Talt today laid a bunt down with two outs, and beat it to first with 2 guys on. And it wasn't no way it was sacrificed, but it was just like a great, the defense gave him an option and he put it down. And
second baseman on back. He's like, I'm going to push bunt it right there. You're not going to get any of us. I'm
there's no way.
Yeah.
So no, just really fun. And like I said, guys that are going to be out there, they're contributing. I mean, the bottom of our order is legit. I mean, I think they carried us a lot of the days with Singer down there and Talt. And, a lot of these guys could be our leadoff hitter, but we're choosing to, put Caraway up there because we want to get him more at bats. And I mean, you can't, how can you complain? He's been phenomenal, but and I was talking to somebody and they were talking about Singer and Talt and why they weren't leading off. And I go, well, after the very first inning, it doesn't matter because they are kind of leading off. The next inning they're getting up and they're in front of these guys. And so you just roll that lineup over, and they did a great job of that all weekend, rolling the lineup over, getting it back to the top of the big bats. And, there's a reason why, Gavin Turley and Craig and those guys had so many RBIs, because there were so many guys on base in front of them, and just exciting. It was a fun time to be Beaver.
Yeah, I told people that asked me all weekend, I said, Omaha teams have a lineup 1 through 9 where there's no easy outs, and the Beavers have put that together. And with having Singer and Talt do what they did at the bottom of the lineup, you're talking about Wilson Weber, a guy who hit a ball 470 feet, is hitting 6th. So
yeah, no doubt.
I mean, I don't know what you want from this lineup. It's tremendous. These guys could hit anywhere 1 through 9. I like the lineup that Mitch has put in there. I think it's great that they're just going to go get those top bats. If you're an opposing pitcher and you have to go out there and see Caraway, Arquette, and Turley, who are 3 guys that could be drafted in the first round in the first inning, that's not fun for anyone. That's not a good day.
No. That's anybody. Like I said, it was funny because the commentators today obviously don't watch a lot of Beaver baseball, but they were like, man, this is going to be a tough year after this year for the Beavers, because they got all these guys that are going to go pro. Like, the whole top half of their lineup is going to be guys that are going to be first, second round guys, like talking about Turley and Arquette and, Caraway and these guys, and just being so blown away with it. And they don't realize that that's what happened to us last year. Travis Mazzano 101, and like, I think we had 8 guys go pro, and we just rebuilt, retooled, and we're right back here, not missing a beat. So it's fun to see. And, it was just funny to hear the commentators talk about this, how big a hole this is going to be. And I'm thinking, that's what we had last year. We were wondering, how are we going to, the year when we lose Travis, how is that going to look? And I feel like, this year the team's really buying into that. They all need to be there. They all need to contribute. This is all of their jobs. It's all of their roles. And they're and how many of these guys got to learn, like Gavin, got to be there and watch Travis and do all this stuff, watch his work ethic, and it just carries over. It's fun to see.
Speaking of guys that are going to carry over, Scott, we had 3 other Beavers get their first hit ever. Paul Vasquez, Martin Serrano, and Bryce Hubbard. I got big things planned for all 3 of these guys. I think they're all going to be tremendous athletes. I think they're all going to contribute next year, possibly. And you're talking about 3 guys that get in there and get their first hits. Beaver, hats off to them. Awesome to see. Grinding when they get opportunities, going out there and get those hits. I believe that Paul and Serrano both had doubles also for their first hits, which is just great.
That is awesome. It was fun to see. That's the nice thing about it, is I think, the coach started pulling guys early, 5th inning or something like that. We had a nice lead. We got to see a lot of, we've been saying all year, our team's deep. This is the deepest offensive team we've seen in a long time. It's one of the deepest pitching staffs maybe we've ever seen, if not in a long time. So it was nice for them to not call the game early today, get these guys all at bats, get a lot of people in there. Everybody needs a chance to go prove themselves, and a lot of guys have. And it's definitely fun. I'd love to have seen, Adam Hite get in there and play a little offense, but kind of reminds me of when Jacob Craig came in and we first saw him pitching. You kept watching going, this guy's big. He could be a first baseman. This guy's awesome. And so I think it's the same thing right now. They're just seeing what they have. They got to throw him a little bit, because there's probably times they're going to use him to pitch a little bit here and there. There's probably times where they're going to use him as a bat off the bench. And it's nice to have a guy like that they can go to and do that kind of stuff. And I'm really excited to get to see an opportunity for him to play offensively, but with the way Tice Peterson's breaking and the way he's playing, and the way he played last year in Arizona, and here he is right back here hitting and crushing the ball again. Where do you put Hite? You can't put him in Talt's spot. You can't put him at, there's just, so right now it's a luxury we have, but it's fun to see these guys get in and get a chance to play. And like I said, you're seeing a lot of guys that, the commentators talking about Serrano and his big, his big swing, and they're like, this guy's got a big swing, and then he doubles, and you're just like, they just couldn't stop gushing about the Beavers the whole weekend. So 15
Beavers got hits, Scott, and 17 of them got at bats, which is just nuts for any weekend you're talking about in college baseball. And you're getting these guys out there that are all would probably start in most places in the country. They want to be here because of this team, because of the way that they've built it. Mitch has built this up with these guys, and he tells them right away, this is your spot, this is your role right now, this is where we're at. And guys buy into it, and they want to be here, a part of this thing. And it's great to see. And I think the fans know that, the players know that when they show up, and the coaching staff just breeds it. And I'm really excited for this team. Who's your surprise of the week? Who really surprised you looking at it? I mean, I know there's lots of options, because it was really a good
week. I mean, I think that Kleinsmith would probably be the guy that surprised me. I mean, I had heard what his numbers were. I'd read his numbers. I saw this stuff. I heard, that, he wasn't a 98 mile an hour thrower like Dax Whitney. He wasn't, but people said he was deceptive, that his ball moved, that he hid the ball well. And you really saw that. So, he was somebody that really, surprised me this weekend. I knew that Singer would probably be a threat, be a fast base guy, but I think his defense really impressed me. And like I said, watching Talt use the bunt as a, as a weapon, and just, he played good defense. There was a couple times where he took an extra base. There was time today that, he was running and the ball bounces off the shortstop and he doesn't miss a beat from second base. He just rounds the corner and straight home. And you're like, how do you know how far that got away? He just really read it well. And he trusts his speed. So I don't know. I think that, probably to me, Kleinsmith would probably be the guy that surprised me the most. But I mean, how can you not be blown away by Dax Whitney? I mean, you hear about it, but he's a freshman. He's coming in. And so, and then, there's so many pitchers. I mean, you could talk
16.
about DeCramer for the whole thing and talk about what a surprise he was, because that's somebody a lot of people don't know anything about. He was a guy that was injured last year, and the list is too long. Like I said, Craig, I mean, going 0 for 4, striking out in the innings a bunch of times, that could have been a real mental slump. And hats off to Mitch for leaving him in that game. And late in that game, he got a nice hit, hard hit ball to center field. And then he turns it around and has a great big game this weekend and, today. And so, in a lot of ways, you could talk about every player and how impressive they were. At least everybody's impressive. So.
Yeah, for me, it was Singer. I really wanted to get a chance to see him. I had heard about the defense. I didn't believe. I was like, okay, yeah, he was great defensively at a JC. I've seen lots of good defensive JC guys coming in, and then you look at him, you're like, this guy's a shortstop at most places. If they don't have Arquette there, he's a starting shortstop, and he's that good defensively, folks. And then the hitting was just right there. Couple gap shots, couple down the line. I mean, he just battled in every at bat. He was never felt like he was overmatched. He was in every single at bat and just really given the best performance for being down at the bottom of the lineup and being able to roll that thing over. Dax Whitney, I mean, I had seen him throw live. I know you hadn't got to see him live until Saturday, and I had seen him throw, and I said, this kid's legit. I mean, he's for real. And then he goes out there and just shoves, and he didn't look like a freshman. He didn't look like the moment was too big for him. I hope that continues for him all season. Kleinschmidt blew me away. But yeah, those three guys really are the ones that go, we knew what we had in Arquette, right? Everybody kind of knew this guy is the number one probably transfer player in the country. Everybody kind of knew 6'5", 220, going to hit. But what Singer did and coming in there and winning that job, that's the first thing he had to do when he got to campus was win that job, right? He had to beat out some guys that are tremendous athletes, and just wonderful to see him win that job. Who takes a big leap? Who takes that leap this next week that we see, okay, they really did something, we're going to build on this?
So to me, I think it's going to be Gavin Turley. I think he's going to be the one that this next week's going to, he's going to play in those big league ballparks. And, he's dialed in right now, but like I said, he hit a ball today that was, could have been a line drive, triple down the line, and the first baseman made a spectacular catch. And, he hit a lot of balls at people. I just think he's going to be the one that kind of is the next big moment where you're like, he's going to have a Jacob Craig weekend, and you're going to be like, wow, okay, well, we know how good he is, but he's the one that I think is the next big step.
He didn't miss many barrels. I'll tell you that much. When he hit it, he was smoking the baseball. For me, I think who takes that next big leap, I think it's Nelson Keljo. I want to see him throw a full maybe 95, maybe 100 pitches this next week, probably closer to 90. I want to see him get after. I want to see him throw more strikes so he can stay in the game for a full 5 innings at least. But he's going to get Virginia on that Friday, and we'll talk about that. And that's a matchup of 2 top 10, probably top 5 in my opinion, baseball teams. And he's going to get the ball there against a lineup that could hit 200 home runs this year for Virginia. I want to see him take that next step forward and be the next great Beavers Friday night guy. That's my pick for the leap forward.
Yeah, that was mine when we did the pre-show. I thought he was going to be the guy that came in and really impressed us. Was the guy who we went, wow, where was he the last couple of years? And he's definitely, I think he's one of those guys that's right there. I'm right there with you. I think that's true. I hope that he's healthy. I sent you the picture. I did a little freeze frame picture of the high five line, and he's got a pretty heavy wrap on his right hand. So we don't obviously get a lot of injury reports. And I saw that he took a comebacker back in the game on Friday night that was, he instantly waved like, "Hey, I'm fine," but he definitely has something in his right wrist or thumb. It's pretty heavily taped. First I was like, "Wait, is that a cast?" And so I'm pausing it and I'm rewinding it, and my wife's sitting there laughing at me. But then I got a couple pictures and talked to a couple people that are down there, and he said that he's been wearing the wrap since Saturday. So hopefully it's just precautionary and, just kind of give him a little bit of rest and get him back here. But boy, what a big game coming up for him getting out there and throwing against Virginia. And I mean, he's got the stuff.
So let's talk about those. We got 4 games coming up this week. Houston, we talked about that it got moved up with the rain, with the possible weather coming in. I don't even know if we're going to get that one in on Wednesday. It's going to be really iffy on that one, right? Then Virginia on Friday, Oklahoma on Saturday, Minnesota on Sunday. Virginia's a top 5 team. Oklahoma's a top 25 team now this week in most polls. Oklahoma has a pair of twins, the Withers twins, that throw on the weekend that are both throwing 100 miles an hour. And they're going to start Friday, Saturday. So we're going to see one of those two on Saturday. I'm excited for this weekend. I think it's going to be a good test. I think it's a great ballpark to have a test in. What are you most excited for, and which game are you looking forward to? I'm sure it's Virginia, but which one are you most looking forward to?
Well, I mean, obviously, I want to see what Dak Whitney does next. I think the thing I'm most excited about is I think that a lot of the national people are going to watch this weekend. The D1 baseball guys are going to be right there. They're going to be watching this series. It's a big series. People are going to see the Beavers. They're going to see this team. I mean, we all watched them real closely this weekend, but I don't think everybody was. So, that's a big moment. I'm excited to see us play Virginia. It's a legit team. We're going to see some star-studded pitching, and I think our guys are going to be ready because they've faced, our pitchers for a month in scrimmages. And if it's 36 degrees on Wednesday, I think we got a huge advantage. We're playing Houston, like in 36-degree weather. Like we just got done doing a month of that, like where they're scraping the ice and snow off the field. So they go out there and scrimmage on a Saturday or whatever. And so I think it's going to be a big advantage for us to be right there where we're comfortable. And so I think that hopefully we get the Wednesday game in, and I know that they moved it up trying to keep a little bit warmer temperatures and that kind of thing, but it sounds like for the whole weekend, it's going to be cold temperatures, so I think that leads well for us. It's a good thing for us versus some of these warm weather states. And, it's going to be a true test getting to play Virginia and Oklahoma and, even Minnesota. So like, it's just exciting. I think that I want to see how we measure up in their big road games. We're not going to have, the huge crowds that are all Beavers. It's going to be, I know we're going to travel well. We always do. That's the thing about the Beavers. We always travel well, but I'm excited to see us get a chance to play some legit teams, and it'll be fun. This is what builds us for making an Omaha run later.
Yeah, and these road games and these neutral site games are what gets you ready, right? You play these top 10 teams, you all get after it. I'm excited. Jay Wilfork is probably going to be pitching for Virginia, so you're going to have Wilfork versus Keljo. Wilfork's a guy who pitched last year in Omaha and pitched well for Virginia, and you're going to see him versus Nelson Keljo. Good first test there for the Beavs. And then Oklahoma is another team that's been really good. They're a scrappy team. They're a team that reminds me a lot of 06, 07 Beaver squads, where it was like a lot of base running, a lot of bunting, a lot of getting guys over, a lot of speed, a lot of pitching. That's what Oklahoma brings. Skip Johnson and that Oklahoma staff really believe in having the pitching first and then building on everything else later. And then Minnesota's a rebuilding team. They got new head coaches. They got new head coach, new staff. I'm excited to see what this weekend brings, Scott. I think that Virginia game on Friday, that was much watch. I think there's going to be so many scouts and people in the stands. I know I got College Baseball Central guys are going to be down there watching. They're excited. We're going to be filling that place up. D1 Baseball is going to have their guys down there. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be an Omaha feel the second week of the season.
Well, and it's what a great opportunity for our young players to go into these, like big league ballparks and get to go do these things and see, serious competition. And I don't know how many people are going to be, what's the capacity there, but we're going to be playing in front of some big crowds and some, I know how many people I know that are going down there to those tournaments. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's exciting.
Very fun, very fun. Final thoughts after week one. I know we're excited that college baseball back, and everybody who was there this weekend, you're the real winners. Everybody got to watch some really good baseball across the country. Very excited. But Scott, I want to hear your final thoughts heading into this week.
Well, I think that we've been saying, I know you and I talked last time how deep this pitching staff is, and I've been telling people for a month that this pitching staff could be the best pitching staff we've seen since, the back-to-back College World Series, national championships and going to 3 straight College World Series. And, like, and now people are starting to believe you because they're like, wow, you weren't lying about Klein Smith, you weren't lying about Dax Whitney, and Nelson Keljo is here. And I remember talking to one Beaver fan earlier, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and he's like, God, we just lost everybody, like our whole weekend rotation, like except for Eric Segura, and we just aren't returning anybody. And we lost the number 1 pick in the draft, and everybody was just devastated that, our offense is lacking. And I'm like, well, I have Arquette, and we got some legit players, and we're going to have Caraway a whole year. I mean, watching the way Caraway played, how big was that injury last year? We can be sad with the disappointment of how it ended, but like, you're watching Caraway make plays and throw the ball right now. He wasn't throwing the ball like that, last year when he did come back in, and he talked about it. He said that his finger was numb from the break still, and he wasn't getting it to roll off his finger the way he wanted to. And you're watching him make throws now, and you're like, wow, what a gun. And, I think Arquette surprised me. I knew he'd bat, but I think his defense, like watching him make a couple throws from deep shortstop, you're like, he's got an arm, and, it's just a great time to be a Beaver. And it's nice we've been saying for a long period of time that we have a lot of pitching, and it's fun to see it kind of come true. So.
Fact. Going to be a great season. I cannot wait to spend it with everybody here. Scott's going to come on the show a few times this year whenever he can. It's awesome to have him on. Scott, thanks for joining us again. Beavs on the Diamond, we're going to be joining you every single Monday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. Join us on live here. If you don't get to watch it here live, it will be posted later on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Scott, thanks for coming on, man. For College Baseball Central, join us for all of our fun stuff every Saturday morning. I also do a national podcast covering all the nations. So if you're just not wanting to watch only Beaver stuff, come check out the nation stuff. Scott, we'll see you again in a couple weeks.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Always fun.
All right, man. Have a good one, and go Beavs.